to really use that gavel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to today's Cabinet. We do need to proceed with the meeting because we have a number of items on our agenda which we need to resolve. Can I just say that if you are going to cause disruption to the meeting, I will have to ask you to leave. Okay, I will ask you to leave the meeting now because we can't actually get on with the business. Can I just ask you, those in the room, could you please refrain from shouting and clapping? Otherwise, I would have to ask you to leave. We are still limited in numbers in terms of social distancing in the room. And that is why we can only have a limited number here. We have set up alternative arrangements in the building.
This meeting, guys, can you hold it? Hold it! No. I have a right to speak. Lisa, I'm asking you to adjourn this meeting. I am asking you to adjourn this meeting so that it can be held at a different date. So a suitable venue we can find that will be able to look to be able to accommodate these members of the general public here, so that they can at least hear the meeting correctly. Please, I appreciate what the control was.
Councillor Cook, could I just ask you to sit back? If you would just please let me speak. We have set up alternative arrangements for the overspill of people because we cannot accommodate them all in this room. That room has live streaming. You can see and hear the meeting as it proceeds from those facilities here in the Guildhall. We have a number of important items that we need to discuss today, not just the item that I know you've all come for, and we to exclude the public from the meeting. Could we please start?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now listen, ladies and gentlemen, everybody. I applaud your passion. I applaud you being here today, but do you honestly think I keep shouting and clapping and not listening to what we are going to go through this morning is going to do you any good whatsoever?
Yes.
Please, may I ask you that you let us proceed in a good way and listen.
No, this isn't.
Please. You don't want to be asked to leave. Please, just listen. You might be pleasantly surprised, you never know, but come on, you're not going to get anywhere today by shouting, you'll just be asked to leave, and that's not going to do you any good whatsoever. Please, I implore you.
Don't be so patronizing!
Well, then you'll probably have to be evicted from the meeting and the building, and to my mind, that does you no good whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to proceed with the meeting. So first of all, can I welcome everyone here? My name is Councillor Lucille Thompson and I'm Chair of Cabinet and Leader of the Council. A few housekeeping points to make before we begin. Please can I advise that the open parts of the meeting are being audio recorded and live streamed from the Council's website, and in addition a video recording of the meeting is being made and will be made publicly available shortly afterwards. Can I please remind all participants to speak clearly and remember to use your microphone? Please can everyone ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are either switched off or on silent. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow any instruction given to you by staff or fire marshals. All the exits are marked by green exit signs on both sides of the room. Please proceed quickly and calmly to the assembly point, which is in Abbey Gardens, and do not use the lift. Can I welcome members of the public, as I've already done, to this meeting. When we get to public participation in the agenda, if you'd like to come forward to the empty desk in front, we've got one, yes we have. The microphone is activated by pressing the large button on the base, and as you know, you have 3 minutes to make your contribution. And obviously it's only those who have registered to speak in time can do so. A timer will appear on the screen to show you the time remaining. It's worth just adding, for the benefit of the members of the public, that we do have an exempt appendix on the agenda today, and should members wish to discuss the contents of that appendix, then we will have to ask all members of the public to leave the meeting. When we have finalised debate on the appendix, we'll come back into open session, and if you wish, you can rejoin us at this point. You will be more than welcome to whilst we are discussing the exempt appendix, we ask you to stay in one of the other rooms, which, as I say, we've provided. But of course, if you don't wish to hang around, that's also fine. We have a number of officers and external partners with us this morning, and I'd like to welcome Professor Larry Lynch and John Walsh from Southampton University, and to Matthew Hutchins, QC. So, thank you very much. We'll now proceed to the agenda items. Apologies for absence.
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Williams, Chair.
Thank you very much. Membership of Cabinet committees. I don't believe there are any changes to Cabinet committees.
No changes, thank you.
Disclosures of interest. Councillor Todd.
Yes, I need to declare a personal but non-prejudicial interest because I'm a county councillor and there's some highways and other county council related business matters later in the meeting.
Any other expressions of interest? I believe there are. Request to speak from councillors. Is it your wish that I call you as we come to the agenda item after it's been introduced?
Yes, please, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Minutes of previous meeting. Now these were a late item because unfortunately they weren't circulated with the minutes, but we have Cabinet members have copies of those minutes in front of them. It was for Cabinet on Thursday the 17th of February. I hope you've all had a chance to look at it. Can we agree that those are a correct record of our deliberations that day? Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay. So I don't believe we've got any members of the public to speak on any general items. So we'll now move on to item number 7, Leader and Cabinet Member announcements. I don't have any announcements, but I know Councillor Lerney has.
Thank you, Leader. The consultation on the Borough End Depot site happened at the new Sports and Leisure Park today. The event was very well attended and the proposal to include Hobbs rehabilitation on the site was well received. We will update Cabinet when we've had the chance to analyse the results and go through any questionnaires which were returned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clear.
Thank you, Leader. Just one that I'm pleased to announce we have secured 25,000 on enhancing our fly tipping actions, which is good. Thank you.
Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Thank you. The process of discussing housing numbers and moving forwards the local plan has started. Avian Fox and his team had some useful discussions with Otterbourne on their selection of Sheila sites and the numbers that can and might be accommodated. I understand that Councillor Warwick took part in the meeting, which was held online. We are very keen to have the fullest possible discussions with the parish councils and ward councillors, and I feel that the session on Monday morning was a useful step forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Todd.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I have two announcements. First of all, the new Vortex Car Park, or Parkfield 2 as we were calling it, will be opening on Friday. It has 287 spaces and also 800 square metres of roof-mounted solar panels, which we've calculated will generate enough power not only to run the lighting, lifts, CCTV and electrical systems in the building, but also to use to charge the 16 electric vehicle charging points as well. We have capacity to add extra charging points as demand increases. Because of the way we redesigned the building following public consultation to cut the number of parking spaces and to move away from Down Road, we have also a large amount of planting in the area in order to help with the shielding and the visual impact. We have 400 square metres of green wall, 115 new trees, so 12 specimen trees and 103 whips on the side of the car park facing the National Park. 92 species of plants and more than 4,000 bulbs planted. But it will be opening on Friday, and it will serve a very useful purpose to help reduce unnecessary car movements through the town and improve city centre air quality while making sure that people can still easily access the city centre. It also enables us to release central Winchester car parking for other users. We're very grateful to the M3 local enterprise partnership for their support and funding for the project. I can also confirm that this week we will be making the last payments of the winter support payments, 651 of them, to local businesses to help them which was put in place to help them as consequences of COVID over the winter period, totalling £1,351,560. This leaves the money that we received from government, the additional restrictions grant, fully spent. Since April 2020, over £51 million has been paid out by the City Council to local businesses, including funding to support businesses that have had to adapt or diversify in order to survive the impact of the pandemic. This is in addition to the £41 million of business rates relief that the Council has applied across the district. I would like to thank the Council officers involved. This was all extra work on top of their daily business, which they had to do to support businesses around the district. Not just some of the money was following government instructions and how it should be spent, but other parts of it was carefully designed and tailored to meet the needs of this district and reach the businesses in greatest need. So we owe a great debt of gratitude to the council officers who've worked so hard to put those systems in place and make sure that the money was paid out to those businesses that desperately needed it in order to help them survive the pandemic and recover strongly afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Todd. Councillor Cook, this is not the time to put your hand up.
If I may, Chair, there are some chairs here. No, excuse me. Thank you, Councillor Todd. There are some spare chairs here for members of the general public that are actually stood up. I'm even happy to give my chair to some of them, but there are some spare chairs. Is that possible for the members of the public?
No, I think because they've all been set out because we are still adhering to a 1 metre social distancing rule. So please, that's it as it is. And there is a chair down there. Anyway, okay. Item number 8, which is the presentation of petitions, and You will know we have 2 petitions to consider this morning. The first is asking us to consider pausing the process of the lease to the University of Southampton for a 6-month period, and has attracted some 207 signatures. Not enough to take it to full council, which is why it is before us today. And the second is a much larger one around the future of the skate park, which was signed by around 3,500, which was heard at council a couple of weeks ago. But first of all, can I call on Mr. Felton to come and present his petition, please?
Thank you. My wife is from Brittany in France, and in her hometown of Quimper, the local authority recently gave the go-ahead to build an indoor activity centre on a piece of land that is slightly smaller than the River Park site. The centre will contain a surf machine, trampoline park, laser tag, bowling alley, virtual reality room, restaurant, childcare centre, and a few other amenities, all of which will benefit the citizens of their fair city and employ up to 100 local people. The reason such a varied and very welcomed by the public activity centre came to be was because of an extensive public consultation. My point here is not that we should have an indoor activity centre on River Park, but to reiterate how important a public consultation is to find out what local residents want, rather than just telling them what they're going to get. Which brings me on to my petition to pause the proposal from the University of Southampton in order to conduct a 6-month public consultation. It is clear from the hundreds of signatories for my petition and the thousands for the Lido and skate park petitions, as well as the thousands of people who support the Friends of River Park, as we can see here today. There is a real distaste from Wintonians for the undemocratic way that River Park has been handled by this seemingly delusional council. If I were to be asked what could be put on the site in a public consultation myself, I would suggest a campus for the citizens of Winchester instead of another campus for the University of Southampton. Such a citizens' campus could have the well-supported Lido, but because the site is so large, and I'm blue sky thinking here, it could also have a surf machine overlooking the Lido, a cafe for all to use, a soft play for the little ones, and a large flexible event space with retractable seating for concerts and exhibitions, as well as being able to house an indoor market from time to time. And in addition, there'd even be room for a small heritage museum, or what Louise over there suggested, a nature department as well, to go in step with the river, which could pull tourists towards the campus, making it a thriving hive of activity for everyone. Now, I do know, I can hear, thank you, I can hear the burning questions already. What about the flood risk? Is it economically viable? Starting with the flood risk, the Environment Agency has 5 flood risk vulnerability classifications. Number 1, essential infrastructure, which is transport and utilities. Number 2, highly vulnerable, which is fire, police and ambulance stations. Number 3, more vulnerable places such as hospitals and educational establishments. Number 4, less vulnerable, shops, restaurants, cafes and general industry. And number 5, water compatible development such as water-based recreation and outdoor sports. And so, according to the Environment Agency's vulnerability classifications, we're better off building a Lido on River Park than a university campus. In any event, the fact that a university campus is being proposed suggests that the flood risk can be managed to allow for even large buildings to be built upon the site.
Do you bring your remarks to a close? You've had over 3 minutes.
Thank you. So yeah, it can be economically viable because we have business plans from other Lidos from across the country. And in conclusion, I appreciate that the university's offer is a simple and tempting one, but in the interest of democracy and the citizens of Winchester, I plead with you to pause the proposal in order to conduct a proper 6-month public consultation to ensure that all options have properly been explored.
thank you, Mr. Felton, for presenting your petition and for all the points you raised. As you know, we will be considering the future of the River Park site shortly, and your petition will obviously be part of our deliberations. And I just would like to reiterate, you've mentioned a number of interesting possibilities. But of course there will be further opportunities for the public and stakeholders to express their views, both in response to the proposed appropriation of the site, as well as in response to the university's application for planning permission. There is no statutory requirement for a formal public consultation before entering into a leasehold disposal, and nor has the council made a clear commitment to formal public consultation prior to any disposal of the site. We obviously accept that the public are passionate about this part of Winchester, and we are too, but we need to consider the economic and social benefits for the city's future going forward, and for all the people in it, as well as further out in the district. But thank you very much. I now call on where am I on the agenda? Mr. Stephen Can, please, to present his petition to us. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the chance to speak this morning, and apologies that we weren't able to present at full council, but that fell during half term when we were away. Clearly, things have moved on since the Save Our Skate Park petition became public and the associated media coverage. The move the council has made to secure the skate park is welcome, particularly after early stages of the campaign where we felt under personal attack. But, and there is a but, the devil is in the detail. So it's unfortunate that there is little detail on the lease back that's proposed and why it's the accepted way forward. Looking at the agenda today, we can see the land transaction will be pushed through. And so it's disappointing that the original heads of terms are still in the pack and they talk of a suitable relocation of the skate park. We could see no evidence of what the council is looking to agree. Is it the skate park in its current form and location that's to be leased back? Or will it be rebuilt, relocated, and that will be leased back once the university has defined the master plan? Will the council be expected to buy the lease that forms part of the site? Is there some monetary contribution, and where might that be funded if so? It has been mentioned that the lease back is being a double lock, securing things for the best of both parties, rather than just not including the skate park land at all. That seems very unusual for a neighbour to dictate or demand what you have on your land. As I say, securing the skate park is welcome, but the vagueness of it all mutes any huge excitement. I do hope that the council has learned something about engaging the younger residents and will redouble its efforts to do so in future, going beyond minimum statutory requirements, trying to reach more of them rather than just sticking to a few existing representatives. The current local plan and open spaces strategy have identified there is still a huge shortfall in equipped spaces for young people. There has been some improvement over the years, but that's why the risk to the skate park was so galvanising for the community. So if it has been saved, and truly saved, then the council needs to move on and eliminate that shortfall and use the money it does have in community infrastructure levy reserve.
To build more facilities for the community.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure what happened to your microphone.
So the current local plan and open spaces strategy have identified there is still a huge shortfall in equipped spaces for young people, which is why the risk to the skate park was so galvanising for the community. So if it genuinely has been saved, then the council needs to move on and eliminate that shortfall completely and use the money that it does have in community infrastructure levy reserves from developers over the years to build more facilities for the community. And I think we can probably suggest a site where those could be built.
Thank you very much, Mr. Can, for your contribution, and I'll call on Councillor Lerney to respond.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Can for his petition. I think we all understand how passionate people are about skateboarding and the skate park. We welcome the opportunity to express our support too. I think it's important to say that the skate park was never at risk. Terms in the lease did protect it. The university are equally keen to see this facility retained. They have asked me to confirm that they are committed to retaining the skate park and have never had any plans whatsoever to remove the facility. It is seen as a very attractive facility to attract potential students, as well as an opportunity for young people to see what goes on a university campus. But I think we do accept the need to demonstrate a clearer level of commitment on both sides of the skate park, and to that end we have agreed the lease back of the skate park by the council. We will have full control of the management and maintenance of the skate park, as well as full control of its future. Due to time, the heads of terms haven't been changed. However, the recommendations in front of Cabinet today do cover the change to include the lease back of the skate park, and just to reassure people, that will cover the full term of the lease. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that ends item number 8 on our agenda, and we now move to the key decisions that we're about to make before us today. And the first one is CAB 3342, the land transaction in respect of the River Park Leisure Centre, RPLC, and associated parking area, Bowls Club and Skate Park, less exempt appendix, on pages 15 to 116 of the agenda pack. I'll ask Councillor Lurney to introduce the paper, please.
Thank you, Leader. The paper in front of Cabinet today is a revised version of the land transaction paper agreed by Cabinet in November. The November decision was withdrawn in the light of an error in advertising the transaction, and is brought back following careful consideration of the responses to the advert. There is an error in the paper that needs correcting, which is that North Walls car park is chargeable rather than free. I won't repeat the full presentation given back in November, but stick to highlights and changes. The challenges faced by the council in bringing the site of the River Park Leisure Centre back into use have been laid out in previous papers. The covenants on the site, the ground conditions and the council's need to see a financial return severely limit feasible future uses. The proposal made to us last year by the University of Southampton to use the River Park site, including a publicly accessible state-of-the-art performance space within an expanded Winchester School of Art campus, was a very exciting proposition, fitting well with this council's aspirations, attracting younger people to the district, enabling aspects of the vision for Winchester 2030, and enhancing our existing strength in the creative industries. The site plan in Appendix A shows the boundary of the land that is proposed to be leased to the university. It includes the car park to the south of the Hyde Abbey Garden, the leisure centre site, the Riverside Indoor Bowling Club and the skate park. The only green space included is the river frontages to the north and east of the site. Having listened to the public and Mr Khan's petition to the council, we have agreed with the university a lease back of the skateboard site, which will ensure the continuation of the skate park under the council's management. All the sporting facilities elsewhere in North Walls Park are unaffected. The continuation of free access to the skate park is preserved. The Indoor Bowls Club has its own long lease. The plan for the North Walls Park was agreed by the Town Forum in the autumn, and we have ensured that lease of the area under consideration doesn't compromise public aspirations for the park or the elements they wish to preserve. The university proposal would also bring increased supervision and activity, helping with the increasing levels of antisocial behaviour that we've seen since the closing of the leisure centre. I'm pleased to say that the park plan does include new activities for young people, including cafe, toilets, a new splash park and river access. There has been much discussion on consultation. As the leader said earlier, there is no statutory requirement for a formal public consultation before entering into a leasehold disposal, and nor has a commitment been made to the formal public consultation prior to disposal of the site. A considerable amount of consultation about the future of the city and linked areas has taken place over the past few years. Going from the top down, we've had the local plan, strategic issues and priorities, the Green Economic Development Strategy, the vision for Winchester 2020 to 2030, the Winchester Movement Strategy, the Central Winchester Regeneration Development Proposals and the North Walls Park Plan. The proposal supports a considerable number of supported outcomes that have come out of those consultations, and one of the messages we have received loud and clear is that many residents want us to listen to what they've already said, not keep asking them over and over again before doing anything at all. We need to take advantage of opportunities that arise, not keep finding reasons for not taking decisions. Stopping now to consult will damage, if not end, this offer from the university. To quote Boyle and Summers, who put together the Winchester vision, it became clear to us in almost every conversation that there was a sense of transition, transformation or moving forward being thwarted, that something was stopping the city from making changes, even small changes. This must change if the city is to thrive. If we agree this today, we will in any case be starting off a process which will lead to the public being consulted a number of times before the land would actually be transferred. Firstly, the university committed to working with the public to develop their master plan for the whole campus. Secondly, the university are required to get planning permission for the site with all the formal consultation that entails. And finally, the site would need to go through the process of appropriation. We have advertised the proposal that we move to an agreement for lease on the site, and it is important that we consider the objections made to the advert for the disposal of the site. The full list of responses are in Appendix H of our report, and the objections have been carefully considered and discussed at scrutiny and with officers prior to this meeting. Some specific points that I will bring to your attention. The Friends of River Park have stated that the notice was defective in law, and I'd like to pass to Matt Hutchings QC to reassure us on that point.
Thank you. There are essentially 2 points in answer to this. First, the advertisements were correct in law, as is explained in paragraph 4.5 of the Cabinet report. Secondly, even if the advertisements were defective, any defect will be cured by further advertisements before an appropriation decision is taken by the council, and that's dealt with in the Cabinet report of paragraph 4.6. And I would observe on this point that there has been a degree of misunderstanding of the position that the council is adopting. So, for example, the Friends of River Park submitted an observation document today in which they say that the agreement for lease would give Southampton University the absolute right to a 150-year lease when they have obtained planning permission, and they mean without any further decision by the council to appropriate the site. And I would clarify that is incorrect. The council has committed that a further appropriation decision will be a condition of the grant of the lease, and the university, I see they're nodding, have agreed this. And that is referred to in the Cabinet report, paragraphs 4.14 and 4.16. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hutchings. The other point is around the status of the university and the assertion that it's a commercial entity. So I'd like to pass over to the University of Southampton to confirm the university's status.
The university is a charity and registered with the Charities Commission as such, and is a public research university sealed by a Royal Charter, as all such institutions in the UK. It has no shareholders, it's not a commercial institute. So like many large charities, it has an enterprise, it runs retail and catering to fund for charitable purposes. The charitable purposes being to undertake education, research and enterprise and civic works in the interest of the public good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Lynch. The public will not lose a large proportion of the recreation ground. Whilst we have not measured the site, one of the objectors placed it as around 18% of the land in question, but that does include the skate park and the bowls club. The assertion has also been made that the public will not have access to the site for 35 years. This is explained in Appendix H and is also incorrect. The site can be used for tertiary education for 35 years. This has absolutely no bearing on the accessibility to the site. Having taken all the objections into account, Cabinet need to consider whether this transaction is the right one for both the city and the district. We have an opportunity to replace a crumbling leisure centre with a high quality, sustainable building with publicly accessible performance space. And having taken all the representations into account, I am pleased to recommend that Cabinet progress with this transaction as set out in the paper.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lerney. Could I call on Mr. Ian Tate, who would like to address us, please? And do feel free to use the mics if you so wish.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak. When I got here at 9:10, it was quite quiet. I actually want to support the proposal behind the recommending the land transaction in respect of River Park Leisure Centre. I believe that Winchester punches far below its weight in the field of arts, culture and the creative media fields, and it's a city with over 2,000 years of history. I feel that the offer from Southampton University, if managed effectively and well, is excellent for Winchester, and we need to congratulate them. I remember very well the excellent 10 Days Arts event centred on the old Wintax laundry site in Gordon Road back in 2009. This was a brilliant event, very well supported. It drew people away from the centre of Winchester to the side of the city, to Hyde. And people came from much further afield. It was an event for both professional artists, of which we have quite a few, and for those still in further education. In the area, we have the award-winning Colour Factory, the nearby School of Art. Through all my lifetime in Winchester, I think has been an institution of international importance and reputation. We've seen some excellent events held at the Cathedral, continue to do so, and also the Great Hall. Winchester has a dire shortage of high quality exhibition and events space. I do want to mention a very good friend of mine, Margaret McFarlane, someone who very few people in Winchester know about. She was an archivist at the county, and she had just huge enthusiasm for the arts and for the collections the county had. Hampshire has some internationally important collections of glass, china, silverware, but very few places to exhibit that. So, in conclusion, my sadness here is I think this is something that the city should be celebrating. I don't want to make a political point, but the danger is I can feel that for the people who engage with me. We are losing the opportunity that the university is offering because you have not engaged effectively with the wider public. And I didn't realise I was going to be speaking first, so probably to a lot of people I'm saying exactly what they don't want to hear. but for something which started off as something to be celebrated and something I've been enthusiastic about for probably 7, 8 years, this opportunity. How have we got into this position? So I do passionately ask Cabinet to maybe, if there is an opportunity to delay the decision making for a shorter period of time, and then absolutely concentrate on explaining to people why this is a really brilliant opportunity for the city. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tate, and we do welcome your support. But as has been made clear by Councillor Lerney, we don't feel we can delay the decision today. We do know that the University of Southampton are really keen to get on with the project, and once they have done their master planning and there are some actual details of design and planning that we can look at, I think there will be extensive public consultation at that point. I now do have a number of councillors who wish to speak. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Leader, for allowing me to address Cabinet this morning. I am one of the ward councillors for St Bartholomew Ward, which is where the RPL site sits. And today I'm speaking on behalf of myself, Councillor Kathleen Becker and Councillor John Tibbet Cooper. Over the past few months, many residents have contacted us about the proposed disposal of this site to the University of Southampton. And as ward councillors, we've met with many of the groups that have concerns. Some people are supportive, and they can see the benefits that an investment of this scale in Winchester by a Russell Group university could bring, not only in terms of new jobs, opportunities for young people, growth in the creative economy, but also the potential community benefits. But many others have raised concerns about what exactly the disposal of the site entails. And the amount of people here today shows that reassurance is still needed. They are worried that the covenant that protects the wider park is being removed, that the large swathes of the parkland will be lost. They want to know why the skate park has been included, and perhaps most often they want to know why residents haven't been consulted. I know I speak for all three of us when I say we would have liked residents to have been involved at a much earlier stage in the decision-making process, so they had a chance from the outset to learn more about the university's broad proposals to redevelop the Winchester School of Art campus and how the old River Park leisure site fits within those plans, to assimilate the information, to have an opportunity to ask more questions and to understand what benefits a university investment of this scale could bring. This is something we as ward councillors called for at a previous cabinet meeting when Councillor Becker spoke passionately about the need for greater community engagement. We also raised specific concerns about the inclusion of the skate park in the disposal, having been clear from the outset that it should be retained by the council. The 3,000 plus skateboard petition raised similar concerns, and we thank the Khans for raising that petition. We do understand the leasehold agreement with the university is a land disposal, and we acknowledge that as such it doesn't require formal consultation, particularly because at the moment there aren't specific plans to consult on. However, we feel more engagement would have led to greater consensus and indeed excitement around an opportunity that should be very good for the city and also good for the local community. An opportunity that this paper lays out. It doesn't threaten the wider park, the playing fields, the tennis club, the five-a-side football pitch, the wild areas of the recreation ground and the play park that everybody knows and loves. We are pleased that in the recommendations for this paper today, that a change to the heads of terms in respect to the skate park has been made. This clearly shows the council has listened to and has responded to concerns around the skate park. While people are still questioning why the skate park isn't simply excluded from the site, I am persuaded that the leaseback agreement does provide a double lock guaranteeing the skate park's future, as both the University of Southampton and the City Council are committed to and locked into retaining it. I note, like Mr. Khan, that the paragraph in the heads of terms is yet to be changed, and I would ask Cabinet to ensure that once those changes are made, the details are made public as quickly as possible. The University of Southampton has given verbal commitments that residents will be involved in the master planning process, and that through this process they will be able to influence the plans. They've also indicated that any development on that site will be built to the highest sustainable standards and will sit well within the setting at the entrance to the park. The Cabinet report lists a range of potential community benefits that could be provided, such as a performance space, exhibition space and a cafe. And if the Cabinet makes this decision today to go ahead with this disposal, we as ward councillors will be pressing the university to ensure that they do consult local residents, that they do fulfil on their promises to provide community benefits as part of this scheme. Personally, I am hopeful that as the University of Southampton goes through the master planning process, that residents' concerns will diminish and the benefit of the university leasing the old RPLC site will become very clear. The residents will see designs for an incredible zero-carbon building within a permeable site that is open to the public, that does has all those things they were hoping for: a performance space, stroke concert hall, an exhibition space, a cafe, places where people can sit, where they can meet, where they can read, places where it's possible to display some of the city's rich history. It's difficult for people to see that now. I am sure the Cabinet today are seeking to make the best decision in the interests of Winchester residents and the wider city going forward. But I urge you to ensure the Council is resolute in its efforts, both through the heads and terms and further negotiation, to ensure the university does fulfil on its promises and it does consult the public. Thank you, Leader, for your time.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. I now call on Councillor Horry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to address Cabinet this morning. I know you will ignore my comments today, just as you have the 428 residents who objected to the advertisement for the sale of the skate park and bowls club, which is impacted by the River Park deal. But nonetheless, it is important to make residents aware there is an alternative, a more open and transparent way to conduct business. I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. We learned our lessons the hard way through the Central Winchester regeneration process and the delivery of the SPD. Meetings with people like yourselves in the Batsy Hall, constant discussions in public. That is how things should be done, not behind closed doors by an administration that thinks it knows best. Let's hope the residents of Winchester realise what an absolute dereliction of duty is being demonstrated with the proposed sale of River Park. without public consultation. You will say it is not needed, and indeed you are technically correct, but you are not morally correct. The people have spoken here today loudly, and you have ignored them. And I know residents will call you out on this. Comments like the following are made, no wonder. I just want to say that, you know, I feel like the point about consultation is perhaps a little bit overblown. That's what a Liberal councillor at scrutiny last week said about River Park consultation. That's not what residents think. I don't understand why you're not brave enough to face residents and answer the tough questions. Is there such an absolute arrogance that you know best, or just a view that you're untouchable and that nobody will stop you? You've taken a deliberate decision to not consult, to avoid the process, and so you deserve all that you will have to overcome. I'm afraid you're going to squander public money on defending yourself in a legal wrangle, and all this is avoidable if you would only give residents the chance to have their views heard, to shape the future of the place they adore. I asked the portfolio holder a direct question this week. Would she take on board any of the comments made at scrutiny after a really thorough review of the paper last week? And the answer was no. She said to me she did not know the question that needed to be asked in consultation. Can you believe that after all that residents have said? I said I would happily write it for her, but it was not my job to do it, it was hers. You know, as a cabinet, I'm not against the University of Southampton interest in River Park, but I do know right from wrong, and the process the Liberal administration is following now is just plain wrong. Last week I implored you, and I do so again today, to seek the views of our residents in a formal consultation process before progressing any deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Councillor Horrell. Councillor Cook.
Good morning, Madam Chair, fellow officers, fellow councillors and members of the general public and members of the House of Constabulary. At the Scrutiny Committee meeting, I asked 3 times for an explanation about the covenant which was part of the 1902 conveyance of the recreation ground. I still don't understand what we are being told was the position. The QC, instructed by the council, told us that the covenant meant you can't build housing on that land. He said, we're not proposing to build housing on that land, so we're not proposing to breach the covenant, meaning that the covenant is only preventing house building. What we are told that only part of the covenant has to do with the preventing house building. The main restriction of the covenant is that the land is only to be used as a public park for public recreation for the benefit of citizens of Winchester. Surely this means that as soon as the land is handed over to the university, the covenant is already under threat. We also know that those with the benefit of the covenant, the successors in title of the Borough of Simmons who sold the land, must amount to several hundreds of people, at least some of them who will be adversely affected by this proposal. Surely the council cannot be confident of getting their consent to that deal. In addition, we were told in 2019, the Cabinet report, that the process of breaking the covenant would be complex and the council would have to show that the restriction of the use of land for public recreation was obsolete. Well, it's certainly not. We need more open space for teenagers and young people, and the local plan requires us to hold on to such green space as we have in and around our city centre. The 2019 report also said that, such as the requires public consultation, evidence that the land no longer required for the purpose to which it is held, consideration of any comments received and not able to be pursued if it would lead to a breach of the restrictive covenants. Please may we be told if this is correct? If it is, surely this land transaction can go no further and should be stopped at this stage. In any event, I suggest that we should listen to the petitioners and the friends of River Park and call a halt to these proposals in order that the public have a chance to come up with alternative, viable, sustainable proposals for this site. We've heard about light areas, we've heard performance space, more room for teenagers, exhibition halls, even a zip wire, cafe for example, a bandstand, formal gardens, or even a return to parkland. We appreciate that the decisions need to be made by the Cabinet, and we ask that you delay this decision. There should be a 6-month public consultation. It is definitely required, and explore every possibility. Community engagement is paramount. It's vital. This is a journey. You need to take your passengers, your members of the general public with you, because it will be a much easier ride. It won't be as rocky, because I think we all know in this room what's around the corner. And it begins with the initials a J, and then it's an R. And thank you for allowing me to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cook. You were at scrutiny, and of course I should have mentioned that we do have a supplementary agenda item setting out the recommendations, the draft recommendations from that scrutiny committee held last Thursday. Okay, so Cabinet, over to you for questions.
Leader, and prior to that, could we just briefly run through the scrutiny recommendations for the record, if Mrs. Adey would like to run through those?
Thank you. The Scrutiny Committee agreed the following comments to be passed to Cabinet. The first comment was that the report provides further clarification of the sequencing of key milestones, particularly referring to pages 55 and 71 of the report pack. The sequencing is clarified as follows. Feasibility, this would be commenced in spring, summer 2022. Development of the proposals, this will involve deeper community engagement. Oh, sorry, thank you. This development of proposals will involve deeper community engagement. Formal planning, the university would apply for planning permission, which is decided by the council acting as local planning authority. And appropriation. Should planning permission be granted, the case for appropriation will be considered by Cabinet on behalf of the council as landowner. This will happen after the planning decision. This involves applying a comparative test, considering whether there is greater public need for development for the proposed new use than the current use. In addition, there was discussion about the extent to which members of the public and stakeholders would be able to put forward proposals under which the council could retain the current use of the site for public recreation, both as part of the planning and leading up to an appropriation decision by Cabinet. In relation to the planning process, policy CP7 in the local plan states that there will be a presumption against the loss of any open space, sports or recreation facility, including built facilities, except where it can be demonstrated that either alternative facilities will be provided and are at least as accessible to the current and potential new users, and at least equivalent in terms of size, usefulness, attractiveness and quality, or the benefit of the development to the community outweighs the harm caused by the loss of the facility. In relation to the appropriation decision, there would be further advertisement in local newspapers inviting objections as required by section 122(2)A of the Local Government Act 1972. Furthermore, officers have clarified that the advertisement will carry a plan showing all parts of the site that were proposed to be appropriated to a new relevant use as part of the university's development, including the closed leisure centre, regardless of whether or not they're currently used as open space. As stated in that recommendation, appropriation requires a decision. There is a great public need, appropriation requires a decision there is greater public need for development for the proposed new use than the current use. It would be open to members of the public or stakeholders to argue that the current use for public recreation should continue. The second recommendation from overview and scrutiny was the correction that Councillor Lerney tabled in her introduction, that we remove the word free from section 4.5 line 8. The third recommendation from overview and scrutiny was that the report be amended to provide a clearer single summary of finances. I've tabled this paper with a table on it as requested, so you can see that in front of you, Cabinet members, so you can consider, but to provide a summary. With regards to capital in respect of the site, the cost of demolition is in the remit of 2 million, and the capital receipt for the lease was covered in the confidential Appendix C. In regards to revenue costs in respect of the site, in the years between now and the lease being signed, we expect to incur costs on this site of 181,000 a year, which will reduce to 26,000 a year if we are successful in getting the business rates delisted. Revenue from the years of the lease signed and forwards from that, we're expecting an income of 31,000 as we're retaining 77 spaces in the car park, which create car park income. That's a gross figure of 55, less deductions for skate park maintenance and non-domestic tax rates. And finally, there's an annual revenue impact which could be realised on receipt of the capital receipt, and that's priced per million on the amount of millions that we receive, 40,000 a year for each million. The fourth recommendation from overview and scrutiny was that discussions are held with the University of Southampton regarding their plans for proactive engagement with residents of the district. The university here today have confirmed that they have engaged an external organisation to work in their project team to help with engagement. As stated in the report at paragraph 15.1, a joint steering group consisting of the University of Southampton and the Council would be established. The terms of reference for this group would include overseeing public consultation and engagement through the informal early stages as the university's proposal is developed and into more formal consultation. The fifth recommendation from the committee was that the committee wanted to ensure that the university's plans achieve net carbon zero. Carbon neutrality is not a criterion of the offer being considered today. However, the university have a published sustainability strategy. This strategy seeks for the university to achieve net zero emissions for their direct and indirect impacts by 2030. We can therefore expect any development proposals to contribute towards this target. The sixth recommendation from the committee was that the committee wished to draw the attention of Cabinet that this was a significant decision to take, while some elements were unknown. There were a range of matters discussed at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. These responses given today in recommendations 1 to 5, cover most of them. The only one not specifically covered is that the site is subject to an existing restriction imposed by the conveyance to the council's predecessor in 1902, which prohibits building housing on the site. The council has no intention of seeking to remove that restriction. The market value of the site will therefore be assessed subject to this existing restriction. I'll just try again. The seventh and final recommendation, just double check it's final, of overview and scrutiny was that Cabinet consider all of the committee's comments raised during discussion of the item. I know most of Cabinet were at scrutiny, and those not there have been briefed on Monday, the 7th of March at 5 o'clock. And I understand you will take the comments from scrutiny raised during discussion into consideration. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. AD. Councillor Todd, you've got a question.
Yeah, I'd like to explore this concept of appropriation. I mean, it's quite a technical word. Am I right in understanding that appropriation refers to the council's power to lift covenants? So that's what we're talking about, and it's a special power that we have so that we don't need to go and agree with all the existing covenant holders and people who signed it, granted to us under the 1972 local of old buildings. You know, we were given the Chesil Rectory by Queen Mary because she got married to King Philip. There's all kinds of stuff that we've picked up over the years. And my understanding is that the councils in general have been given a power to lift covenants called appropriation, which is what we're talking about as a later stage of the process. Is that correct? Have I understood that correctly?
Mrs. Adey?
Could I pass to Matt Hutchins-Gibson, please? Thank you.
So there are two different things here. First of all, the Local Government Act 1972, section 122, provides a power for the council to appropriate land, and specifically provides that where it decides to appropriate land which is open space, what is generally referred to as a statutory trust, requiring that land to be used for the purposes of public recreation, comes to an end. So that's the main point. Secondly, what Councillor Todd was just referring to in terms of authorising works, notwithstanding that they would otherwise breach a restrictive covenant that affects the land, that is a power which is given to local authorities currently under section 203 of the Housing and Planning Act 2016. There are additional requirements that have to be satisfied in addition to the merely decision about appropriation for that power to be used.
Sorry, I've got a series of questions being asked.
But as I understand the context of these questions, it's because it's been said that the conveyance of 1902 contained a covenant by the council only to use the land as a public park and recreation ground. In fact, what the conveyance said was, and I'm reading from it, the vendor as beneficial owner doth hereby convey, etc., 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 for the purpose of a public park and recreation ground. So the land was conveyed to the council's predecessor for the purpose of public recreation. It does not say that the council's predecessor covenants that the land will only be used for that purpose, and there's a distinction. Generally speaking, where land is conveyed for the purpose of public recreation, that gives rise to what's generally referred to as a statutory trust, in this case under the Public Health Act 1875, and that's been fully dealt with in the Cabinet report before you.
Thank you.
Councillor Todd.
Yeah, I can have a few clarifications. That's very helpful, and if I understand the covenant correctly, our predecessors in 1902, when they were negotiating to purchase the land, explicitly put in a clause that refers to the right of the purchasers to erect any buildings or galleries for recreation, scientific or other similar purposes, and there's some stuff about lodges for keepers and caretakers, or any other buildings that may be required for the benefit of the said city, except industrial dwellings. So the except industrial dwellings is presumably the bit that says we can't build housing on it, but it also says that any building for the benefit of the city was written in by our predecessors as an exclusion, as something that the city is permitted to do. Is that correct, or have I misunderstood it?
They're both correct.
Thank you. And in terms of this lifting of appropriation, I mean, firstly, it's not something we're doing now. So the covenant and the protections and the open space protection remain in place currently, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
Right. And it's a granular power. So it's not something where when we lift it, the whole site is unprotected. So if I understand it, all the areas that sit outside the area of sale, so all the playing fields, all the tennis courts, all the parks, all the river area, all the sort of the wilder areas, all of that is not being sold to the council, is not controlled by the council, is not being appropriated, and the full protections of 1902 and the trust entered under the previous Centuries Act, all of those protections will stay in place. And when we come to appropriate, we literally only need to appropriate the smallest possible area within the entire site, within the area that's for sale, in order to enable the planning permission to be implemented, and it will be a decision that we take separately at a later date. Is that a fair understanding?
That's correct.
But maybe it's time for somebody else to have a go.
I'll open it up to other cabinet members. Councillor Cutler?
Yeah, I just need to be absolutely clear. The council took a decision some years ago that on building the new leisure centre, there would be a requirement for a capital receipt, and that the River Park Centre would be sold. Can I be absolutely clear that the capital receipt position on that, I think Mrs. Adey responded that for every £1 million that saves £40,000 on revenue. That's the standard figure that we use on that. I just need absolute clarification on, given the comments made in scrutiny about valuation, that the process of best consideration will create the correct valuation, and that the relevance of the comments made at scrutiny, that if, for example, the covenant was lifted on industrial housing, there would be a higher value, is somewhat irrelevant, because it is what it is at the moment, and that's what we've been negotiating on. So I wonder if Ms. Botham could confirm that I've got this right.
Chair, yes, Councillor Cutler is correct. The council has a duty when disposing of any assets, land or assets, that it achieves best consideration that is reasonably attainable through that disposal. We have commissioned an independent valuation that will need to demonstrate that it complies with that requirement to meet best consideration, and subject to that valuation being within the terms set out in the Exempt Appendix, then that would meet with the terms the Councillor Cutler is referring to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Botham. Councillor Clear.
Thank you, Leader. Equality's impact on this transaction. We've read the equalities impact assessment and note that this transaction could have an impact on the basis of disability and of someone's age, and I know Cabinet are referred to section 9 of this report and Appendix D, which highlights the people who may be impacted by this transaction and what mitigation is proposed. Is there any further comments on that, please?
Mrs. Adey?
Thank you. Yes, the two categories impacted, as you've highlighted there, we are making sure we continue to provide some car parking spaces. So people that may have a disability and may require to park closer to make sure that they can access the park and the green areas, that's protected. So we've made sure that that's not impacted by this proposal on the table today. The reference to age and people being impacted on age, the Bowls Club is included in the proposal today, and the impact assessment demonstrates to you that people above 50 tend to use the Bowls Club, but they have continued access and the Bowls Club is remaining, so it's not an impact, it's just a note to note. And of course the proposal itself will generate use of the site for university, which encourages the younger generation to use the site and to use the city of Winchester. So they're the impacts you're referring to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any further questions? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Todd.
I've got a question about open space, because there's reference in some of the concerns raised about the shortfall of open space. Now, I've looked at the open space strategy, and that isn't done on a citywide basis. It's done on a ward basis, and there are old ward boundaries. What it shows is that there's a major shortfall in the west of the city. So in particular, St Barnabas, St Paul, Badger Farm and Harestock in the north are shown as restricted as the areas that have a shortfall. Is that how we're meant to look at open space? Are we meant to be considering the local impact? I know as a St Barnabas resident that there is real concern there about lack of open space in that area, and I just wondered how granular is our concern meant to be on that?
This is Adey.
Thank you. You're right in how you've set that out. It's looked across the boundaries, and for this particular site, as you've discussed, it's looked across those boundaries. We are currently looking at a new open space strategy. Our current open space strategy tends to lay out like an assessment of the problem, but doesn't actually address the problem in increasing the open space where there is a shortfall. So we'll soon be coming to you, to Cabinet, to bring forward a new open space strategy, which will address what you're referring to, which is how we're actually going to address the shortfall where there is shortfall in any area, not just in this particular area.
I've got a question actually for Professor Lynch, which is, if I may, which is how many students do you have studying at the School of Art, and how many of them are living in Winchester, to the best of your knowledge?
As of today, there's just under 1,400 students registered on programmes at WSA. Less than half of our students, just less than half, are domiciled in Winchester. Our postgraduate students, for the most part, choose residencies in Southampton, where they take their pre-session English.
Right, so one of the points that's been made is that we have supposedly had a higher proportion of population of students in Oxford and Cambridge, but if there's 8,000 students at University of Winchester, and I know a lot of those live at home as well, and 650, that's about 8,500 out of the 45,000 in the city, but Oxford, for example, has 25,000, 19,000 at Oxford Brooks, which is about 30%, just in pure head count, and we're at 20%. So the figure that's talking about here, that's actually incorrect. And I've looked at Anglia Ruskin University with 10,000 and Cambridge University with 21,000 out of a population of 129,000. That's also 25%, so it's a higher proportion. So it's not actually true that we have a higher proportion of students in Winchester than Oxford and Cambridge. That's factually incorrect. That's fake news, I think is the term. Has anybody else done this apart from me to look at the figures? Sounds like nobody else has. Right, okay. Am I allowed to keep going?
Apologies, I didn't see you indicate.
That's okay.
Yes, please.
We also ran the figures and we do believe that they're incorrect, but I think their statement belies an anxiety that we would still seek to address later on about impact of students within the city.
That's greatly appreciated, and can I confirm, I guess this is with, which is a matter that I've repeatedly brought forward, is that our local plan is inadequate in its treatment of housing numbers. And can you provide me reassurance that we will do, shall we say, a much better job in the next version of local plan in sort of setting requirements for and planning for our student population? I know there's a lot of interest, certainly in my ward and my division, in making sure that we have adequate purpose-built student housing to enable freeing up of family homes, particularly in our council estates, and we shift the balance of where housing is. Is that something that is, firstly, it would be useful to get confirmation that it's within the university's thinking, but secondly, get confirmation that it's within our thinking for the next version of the local plan?
Mrs. Aiken, first.
I happen to go first, thank you. Yes, we are bringing our new local plan forward with draft policies coming forward this year to be consulted on, and we're definitely addressing the students' population within our local plan policy. So I can assure you that that will be, we'll be working with Councillor Gordon-Smith to make sure that that's brought forward in a suitable way. And do you want the university to confirm?
Yes, I was going to say, Mr. Walsh, student numbers and accommodation.
Well, I'm not certain exactly where this within this conversation is. Obviously, it's an ongoing dialogue both with the City Council and with the people of Winchester, and we're alive to the fact that actually any proposals will have to answer some questions on that. I strongly suspect we will end up in a conversation about private purpose-built student accommodation rather than university-run student accommodation, but that is a conversation that will almost certainly have to happen.
And not in this site.
Well, yeah, it's categorically not on this site.
Okay, any further questions? Oh, yes, Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Thank you. This is a question for Professor Lynch. My understanding is that you do have some, you have an alternative site which might also be considered instead of the River Park. I don't want to put you in an awkward position.
Not awkward at all. At first I've heard of it, but do let me know.
Oh, right, okay.
Any further questions before we move into debate? No?
Well.
No? Okay. Debate. Anybody want? I've got some words to say if nobody's ready. So I'll go first then. I think this is a fantastic opportunity, not only for our city, but actually for the district as a whole. The chance to form a collaboration or a partnership, if you like, with the University of Southampton and be part of their £100 million investment in the city is both an exciting and an exceptional opportunity. As a City Council, of course, we need to look beyond the employment opportunities that we have now, because quite clearly jobs in the public sector are, I mean, they're decreasing all the time anyway, and of course Winchester's employment is very much concentrated in public sector jobs alone, and we cannot in the future rely on those jobs still being around. So if we are going to move forward, we need to look at different sectors if our city is going to thrive. The partnership with the University of Southampton, centred around the School of Art, gives us that opportunity to really grow the creative and cultural sectors that are already flourishing within our city. It also fits really well with our commitments in central Winchester to develop a creative and cultural hub. We know that we need to do more to retain the younger population, but we need to provide the jobs and space for them to do just that. I've had a quick look at the university's sustainability strategy, which shows that they are also in alignment with our zero carbon ambitions. And of course, reusing a previously developed site, which provides economic, social and community benefits, supports this. It's astonishing how the tables have turned, because earlier on in our administration, we have constantly been told by the opposition, oh, get on with it. Well, we are now proposing to get on with it, and it is the opposition who are choosing to dither and delay. And for what purpose? Is it the hope that some magical proposal, complete with funding, will pop out of the woodwork? It's been more than 4 years since the decision was taken to build the new leisure centre at Bar End. And since then, apart from the odd housing inquiry, no fully costed plan, which doesn't involve the council giving away the land and spending a considerable amount of council taxpayers' money, has been put forward. We have always made it clear that we would need a capital receipt for this site to help us maintain and protect our leisure services across the district, and of course to offset the whopping £42 million the council has just spent on our state-of-the-art new facility and much of ours at Bar End. So it's very difficult to see how another scheme will come forward which has so many of the benefits, social and economic, giving us the opportunity to having that much wanted performance and exhibition space, together with job creation that we really need for the city to thrive in the future. This is a fantastic opportunity, and I am thoroughly looking forward to working with the university on their plans going forward, to making sure that the university, they've given that commitment for much more public consultation, and once they have plans that people are able to comment on, then I know they will do that. So I do think this is a fantastic opportunity, and I will be supporting the recommendations as set out in the paper. Thank you. Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Leader. I kind of come at this issue wearing various hats. So one of them is as the Cabinet member responsible for economic recovery, responsible for the city's economic future, and thinking about that deeply, about what the vision for the future needs to look like, how we move forward as a city. And one of the things that's very clear, whenever you look at what it takes for centres to be successful, is that you need non-retail jobs. And the city has thrived over the years because we've had jobs in the centre, and that they have helped drive the economy. And those jobs are reducing. So, you know, we've historically been a centre of government. We had a barracks, we have a prison, we had the police headquarters and all the staff that were there, we have a hospital, we have the county council, we still have a court system. But I think we need to be realistic. Any plan for the city's future that assumes that we continue to have a high level of local government, justice department, and other employment in the city, particularly with emerging employment patterns, and particularly in the context of a big priority for levelling up, which explicitly is about spending money in places that aren't Winchester. Not explicitly not Winchester, but it's very clear where we sit in the hierarchy, is not a plan. It's not a plan for the city. And we have to be thinking about our future. And there are some that kind of go with theme park Winchester and think that that's enough. And I don't think it's enough. I don't think that's the breadth and the scale and the type of employment that we need to offer. I don't think it's a vision for the future. We know that we don't have enough young people staying on, particularly after university period. So we need to be thinking about how the town works, what will drive the city and drive the city's economy moving forward. And every single time we look at this question, and what I'm about to refer to is big policies consulted on with thousands of people, in some cases inspected by government inspectors. You know, policy win one, the first policy for the city of Winchester in the local plan says, encourage economic prosperity by reinforcing its reputation as a regional centre for creativity and culture. Absolutely at the core of what we should be trying to do as we think about development. The vision for Winchester ended up with an entire work stream all about culture. If we look at this city as a centre, it is a huge educational centre. It's part of who we are. We have top private schools, top state schools. We have a university and a bit of a university, and a bit of the university wants to be a bigger bit of our city. And that is part of what we need to continue being good at, and that we can't afford to be complacent on. When we looked at the Green Economic Development Strategy, and again, so this wasn't so much consulted with the public, this was conversations with businesses. And they're saying to us, key policy thing, culture, creative and visitor economy, the creative economy. One of the things in terms of being a vibrant base for business, and again, all the evidence as to what it takes to have a successful place talks about the collaboration between universities and other anchor institutions and the local business and the community, creation of a strong knowledge economy. And even actually called out as a priority action, collaborating with the district's educational institutions to grow opportunities for the creative and cultural sector. So every single time that we look at our economic future, and this is strategic work going back over years, it's got heavy consultation, we keep coming back to the importance of the creative and cultural sector, and there is literally no better way of supporting that and having a role, frankly, not just within the Winchester economy, but within the Hampshire economy, of having a top-tier university expanding its footprint in the city and helping ensure that we have a positive vision for how this place is going to thrive and work in the future, because we cannot be complacent about existing models of work patterns, employment patterns. We have to be investing in our future. So for me, the strategic case, in order to say we will work with the University of Southampton and the University of Winchester to help them strengthen their presence, to justify investment in our city, to me is a very straightforward one, and an important part of how do we make sure that this is a thriving, active city for the future. But we've also heard back, and this is me as a Winchester resident rather than me as somebody who has lived in Hyde for some time in the past, which is River Park is a really special place and we need to protect it. And there were questions raised at the beginning about, was the green space under threat? Were we going to lose the covenant? Because at times people were saying that covenant will go across the entire site, the green space, a lot of the language that is used implies that the green space is under threat. That's why I was putting people, asking so many questions earlier, because that protection of that green space, knowing that it sits outside the footprint, knowing that the covenant and the open space categorisation will stay in place is incredibly important. It was very striking also that the petition that got the big response, the really big response, was the one that talked about leisure facilities, that talked about the skate park. And I'm really pleased that we've actually found a way of protecting it even more than I thought would be possible. So not only can effectively the university, not only can the City Council stop the university from stopping it being a skate park, but the university can stop the City Council from stopping it being a skate park. And there's a point here which, again, coming back to appropriation, which is if it remains as an open space skate park, then it won't be appropriated and there will be legal protection in place, as I understand it. The other thing I wanted to know was that effectively, as I see it, we're taking this kind of high-level strategic decision today, but that the consultation, this is not the end of the decision-making process, and there will be serious, what I would call soft, qualitative, listening, understanding people's issues type of consultation happening as part of the master planning process. And in fact, it would be a material case for opposition under the planning application if there wasn't, because we require it from people in developing master plan process. And there will also be what you might call hard consultation, where people are responding to planning applications and to appropriation decisions. So if I take all of that, if I take the, as I see it, absolutely critical need and the importance and the opportunity presented to us today for the city's future, and actually as the district's future and the county's future, in terms of the importance of extending the footprint of the University of Southampton in Hampshire and in Winchester and in the Winchester district. If I take the fact that I think, in part because of public pressure, we have really robust protections of the green space, of the skate park, of the tennis courts, of the playing fields, of the access through the site. And the fact that what we're starting today is a consultation, we're not ending it, then I think the right thing to do for the future of the city, thinking about the need to protect what's special about the city, is to support this proposal. And that's what I will be doing when we come to a vote.
Thank you very much, Councillor Todd. Councillor Clear.
Thank you, Leader. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, there doesn't appear to be so many of you now, but once again, as I said earlier, I applaud your passion. I mean, I live in a village, Wickham, and I too have questioned certain things that go on. Yes, I applaud your passion, and I thank you for coming today, and we finally kicked off, even though it was a bit later than planned. And it proves that you care. But I also, there's always a but, I just want to say that we are trying to do something good for the community. This project, to me, is so important. And if we've not handled everything to your satisfaction, then we apologise. We really do. But I do not apologise for me later taking the decision to go ahead with this project. A project to me that is so beneficial to all the community and a brilliant opportunity for you all. And as Professor Lynch indicated, he will work with the community on the way forward. So, and if I could just say about the skate park, it's never been the intention for such an important facility as the skate park to be lost. Like so many skate parks across the district, they are well used and a valuable asset to councils, and there will always be a demand for skateboarding, and we will protect skateboarders, the council will. So I would just like, I can see you nodding, but we will.
I'm shaking my head, I'm sorry, because I felt so much opposition when I first put this up in social media. I had 3 councillors on one post, spent hours and hours arguing with me about it. I just disagree, I just think you're papering over the track.
No,
please.
Excuse me,
You are.
Councillor Clear, sorry, I don't know your name, member of the public, but this isn't a question and answer session.
Well, she addressed me directly, so I addressed her back. So
okay, can you just be quiet now, please? Otherwise.
Thank you, but I just wanted to finish by saying it will be a great asset and a great vision for Winchester, and thank you for coming, and that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay, now before we just go into the summing up and recommendations, of course we do have an exempt, we do have an exempt appendix. which I don't know whether there are any questions on that that might require us to go into exempt. No. Councillor Horrell.
Chair, I was registered to speak on that. It would be helpful if we weren't circulated with the financial information that you have received today. If we could receive that as members of scrutiny, that would be helpful to understand the full financial position.
Okay. Is that possible, Mrs. Aden? Yes? Yes, okay, all right. So, just to clarify then, Councillor Todd?
Yeah. If I understand correctly, I mean, with the public information we talked about is referred to in Appendix C, which is the exempt section. So it just has a line that refers to. There's nothing in the finances that were circulated today, but that is exempt. I was going to give you my copy.
Yeah.
I just thought that was an important clarification. I mean, that doesn't mean that if Councillor Horrell wants to make a deputation in that section, but maybe we could remember.
Okay, well, we'll just let Councillor Gordon-Smith make his comments, and then I'll come back on the possible need to go into exempt.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Professor Lynch and John Walsh for sitting through and a bit of an endurance test this morning. I think my second point would be that we've been known that the River Park building is going to become surplus to requirement for about 5 years, and no viable worked out plan has appeared. And we had a splendid example suggested by Mr. Felton of an example in Brittany. I'm sure we could all come up with some lovely ideas, but it always comes down to the bottom line. And from my knowledge of France, there are often big dollops of cash which are dished out by central governments to pay for these things, particularly in the provinces. I think the problem is that the offer from the University of Southampton is therefore really the only game in town, the only viable one. And we could take on board Councillor Horrell's suggestions and delay for 6 months. We could obviously delay for longer and develop up a master plan and an SPD, as was done for the central of Winchester. But the problem is, I think we'll be trying Southampton's patience to push it as far as that. And I think at the end of it, we might have ended up with a splendid master plan, but with a huge, not only a white elephant, but a dead white elephant that will be sitting with us in the city for a decade or so before some other use can be brought forward. Thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to clarify about the, thank you very much, Councillor Gordon-Smith, the exempt paper. Councillor Horrell.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I did register to speak. I appreciate being shown the financial information that you've received today, and I don't have any additional questions to ask, and so there's no need from my part to go to exempt. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Horrell, for that clarification. Cabinet, any need to go into exempt? Councillor Todd?
No, I think the basic principle of best consideration and how the sale will be handled has been talked about. We are all aware of the specific numbers that are listed within, and I'm not sure it would serve any particular purpose to discuss those in private.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lurley, would you like to sum up?
Thank you very much. As has been discussed, financial reality does come into play here. We know there are no big government grants coming the direction of towns like Winchester in the near future. This is a disposal of best consideration, has been said, and will help us finance investment across the district, as well as giving the economic benefits that have been mentioned and providing a boost to the cultural and creative offer available to the public in Winchester. We do not only welcome the commitment from the university to public involvement in developing the master plan, so starting off with that blank sheet of paper, and that's a master plan for the whole site, not just for the site under discussion today, and we will make a commitment that we will hold them to that. For one thing, I don't think Professor Lynch could go out in the street without the local members chasing him down the road if that doesn't happen. So I think we have heard what people have had to say, but we do have to take a pragmatic approach to this, and I welcome the rest of Cabinet's support on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Learning. Well, I do think we've had a very long debate on this particular paper before us. So if we could move to the recommendations then. They are on pages 15 and 16 of the agenda pack, and we're looking at CAB 3342. Cabinet, are we agreed? Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Shame on you.
I think now we'll have a 5-minute comfort break, just to get ourselves sorted before the rest of the agenda before us. Can I thank Professor Lynch and Mr Walsh for coming from the university and being with us for quite a few hours. So thank you, and we look forward to speaking with you again very soon. Okay. Oh, and can I also thank Mr Hutchins for coming along and ably helping us out with the legal comments. Thank you.